what do you make of this idea of 22nd January as a second Diwali? Do you think it will have large sort of resonance across political affiliations? That this is a moment that has transcended politics, or do you still very much see this as a BJP moment?
Well, I think, like Mr. Modi says, how you interpret that statement depends on where you already stand. You can see it as a call to Hindu revivalism, saying, I have brought you a new kind of Diwali, just as Lord Ram had. You can see it as a threat, saying to Muslims and everybody, this is now a Hindu country, this is a Hindu festival. He's asked, if you'll note, all Indians to celebrate, you have to follow our ways. Or you can interpret it as I do, that Mr. Modi is trying to say that this is now beyond politics. Let's all of us get together and just celebrate this moment and indicate that this is over and that the mandir has been built. Now, it depends on where you stand on Mr. Modi. It's a threat, it's Hindu revivalism, or it's an attempt to unify the country behind the Ram Mandir. My own view, for what it's worth, is that yes, with the faithful, the Ram Mandir will matter. It will indicate to them that Mr. Modi was able to do what Mr. Advani and everybody else, Mr. Vajpayee, all of them failed, that he was able to push the Hindutva agenda forward. But for people who support Mr. Modi for other reasons, other than Ayodhya, and there are many of them, let's not kid ourselves, I don't think it'll make that much difference.
So you're basically saying the mandir isn't going to change political minds.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think it's going to change any minds at all. It will please the faithful. It will annoy the people who don't like him already. I doubt very much if many undecideds are going to change their views because of this.
So here's looking ahead. Your column in the print, and I think we have an excerpt of it somewhere. Your column in the print assumes a victory for the prime minister in 2024, and it then talks about not really expecting a different prime minister. This is going to be, don't expect a
Yeah.
gentler Modi in 2024. He's already sure of his place in history. Talk a little bit about that. Why would anyone
Okay.
be looking for a gentler Modi?
Well, I think many people had the view. If you look at Mr. Modi in the beginning of his first term, he wasn't quite the absolute figure he is now. If you look at him now, he's a completely absolute figure. As we've seen with the parliament suspensions, he's a figure who has now lost patience with the opposition, does not believe he's answerable to them any longer. If they persist with questions, he simply wants them thrown out. There was a view that we could get something like the Mr. Modi of the first couple of years. This is a man now who's put his imprint on India. He's tried very hard and has largely succeeded in being seen as a global statesman by other world leaders. That he will use this time not to go down in history as an Erdogan type figure or whatever, but as a unifier, as a man who united India and took it forward into the first rank of nations. There was a view that he would do that. I personally don't believe that he will do that. I think the way in which we've seen Mr. Modi behave, I think Mr. Modi is pretty sure he doesn't want to be remembered in any other way than the way he's remembered now. He believes he's doing what is best for India. He accepts, I think, and recognizes that he has recast the way in which India is run. He's changed what used to be the consensus. He's taken the political center and moved it, I hate the terms right and left, but moved it much more towards a absolutist Hindutva position. And you're going to see much more of that in the next term.
Some people suggest that Atal Bihari Vajpayee, a prime minister you knew well, was pushed to the center by being in government, and that Modi in government has pushed the country to the right. Would you think that's true, or do you think that's an oversimplistic statement?
No, I think Advani and Vajpayee, when they were in office, Vajpayee generally was a moderate. Advani was not a moderate, no matter what he may say now. But they had the compulsions of coalition politics. We forget that until Vajpayee came to office and came into power, the BJP was regarded, terrible term, but like politically untouchable, and nobody would align with them. So when it did align with people, when it did create a coalition, and it didn't have a majority of its own, so it needed a coalition, it had to pose as being much more moderate than its hardcore was. Mr. Modi doesn't have that problem. He has the numbers. He can do what he wants.
But to return to the argument you make that he doesn't feel any need to alter his image, his legacy to the expectation of a more centrist figure. Why do you believe that? Like, what has happened? Let's say the last 2 years that makes you think that.
Well, Parliament is one instance. Give me one thing that Mr. Modi has done over the last 2 years that suggests he wants to secularize his image, that suggests he wants to promote.
The outreach
Or
with Christians.
I was
I'm
about to
answering
say
your
that
question.
you
Yeah.
will come up with the Christmas party, which is it,
Yes.
right? Beyond that, there's nothing
No, the
else.
outreach with Pasmanda Muslims. There is
Yeah,
something,
but the
right?
Paswana Muslim thing is tactical. The Christians is a statement, I think, meant to appeal to the West, because there's been a lot of criticism in America and places of his Hindutva absolutism and a suggestion that even Christians are being treated badly. Unlike, say, Islamic countries, which don't on the whole care how Indian Muslims are treated, I think in the West they do care how Christians are treated. They have hearings in Congress, people talk about it. And Mr. Modi wants to shut that door so nobody ever accuses him of that. Beyond that, I mean, has he struck you as being a gentler, more reasonable, more willing to listen to the other side kind of person?
I think the political opposition doesn't really have a narrative to counter him. They very much play and lose mostly on his terms. But there are certain issues, and I'll name two: the farmers'
Yeah.
agitation and Brij Bhushan Saran Singh. Very delayed intervention, but it has come in the form of sort of suspending this wrestlers' federation, on which there is some paying heed to resentment that is not politically organized necessarily, but is widespread even among BJP supporters.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think both cases didn't come from the opposition. They came from the public at large. Both included BJP supporters. Many people in the BJP felt they were mishandling the farmers' agitation. And both came before elections. One before the UP election, where people worried what would happen with the farmers' agitation, and the wrestlers before the Haryana election. So there's always a tactical element to everything Mr. Modi does.
So we're near elections again.
Yeah.
Do you see in these 10 years that being in government has altered the prime minister as a political figure at all?
Yes, I think he's much more confident. He's much more sure what he wants to do. We forget now that until Mr. Modi came into office, there were countries that denied him a visa, that his image was very, very different. He's come into office, and the same countries that denied him a visa now welcome him, now court him, now praise him. He's grown in stature in his own mind. He's become much more confident. He believes now that he is an international statesman. And, if you look at the evidence, he's probably right.
So look ahead at a third term. When I return to your column, one, obviously, you think there are going to be no major surprises in this election. You think this election is a done deal.
Well, I think you're removing all the qualifications. When I write a column, I'm always careful to cover my ass and say things like barring unforeseen circumstances, etc. So I'm sure all that also exists in the column. But I
Okay, with
do
all
think
the
it's a
health
done deal.
warnings, with
But but
all
I
the health
but
warnings.
given all of those, I think it's a done deal. I don't see how he can lose because he has the Hindi belt all sewn up. And when he has the Hindi belt all sewn up, that's enough to guarantee victory. It's also not clear that places like Bengal, where he was wiped out in the assembly elections, he will necessarily do as badly in the parliamentary elections. People have a way of voting for Mr. Modi when it comes to the national picture rather than the state picture. So I think he's okay. I think the Congress is in a lot of trouble. It hasn't figured out what to do. It'll end up getting 40, 50 seats unless it thinks of something new. I think what's worrying about, and I've said this in the piece, is that all the things we said it should do has made no difference. People kept saying Rahul Gandhi as party president is a joke. Well, he's not party president. People kept saying Rahul Gandhi is extra constitutional authority is a joke. Well, he's got a full-fledged president and a man people take seriously. People said the problem with the Congress is that it's an hawk and Gandhis. There are great state leaders, who understand things. Let them do it. So you let Kamal Nath, Bhupesh Baghel, Digvijay, all these guys do it. Gehlot. What happened? So everything people have said the Congress should do to revive itself is done, and still pretty much where it started out. So there is a problem, and the
I
problem
mean,
is,
the
I think, the
Gandhis
one you
have
might.
not, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the Gandhis have not really
Yeah.
let go of the Congress.
Well, I don't think, for instance, ticket distribution in these assembly elections was that much dominated by the Gandhis. I think the local leaders had a lot to do with it. It was very clear in Rajasthan that Gehlot would come back. It was very clear in Madhya Pradesh that Kamalnath would come back. Baghel in Chhattisgarh. They were actually promoting regional leaders. Yes, the Gandhis exist, and as much as we may say it's dynastic and anti-democratic, the fact is that Rahul and Sonia do get the biggest crowds. Maybe it's only among Congress supporters. So it doesn't necessarily benefit the Congress if they don't campaign. I think it harms the Congress if they take every position and every decision. But they're not doing that any longer. And have things changed? Is the Congress in better shape?
So what does that tell us?
It tells us that the Congress is a party that is in search of an appeal, in search of an issue, that it does not know how to fight Mr. Modi, that it has struck the people of India as being unable to provide stable governance, at least the people of North India. And as long as that persists, Mr. Modi is okay. I think, and I've also said in that same column, that Mr. Modi is not okay in the South, he's not okay in the fringe, he's not okay in Punjab, he's not okay in Bengal, that it still remains largely a Hindi belt phenomenon, this popularity of the BJP, and perhaps he'll overcome that at the next election. But if he doesn't overcome that at the next election, during this third term, which I think will happen, well, while he will be a very strong prime minister, he will also face increasing dissonance from the rest of India, who will object to this Hindi belt domination.